Hello, John, Happy Place. In this class, we are working with watercolor and alcohol. And as you can guess, there's some kind of reaction, so the alcohol will push watercolor away. And I came up with the project when you also work with color versus black and white. So you will need to find some image, which is preferably in black and white. And then I'll show you how to create it could be the background, or here it's like a missing part of the image. So I remove black and white sky and replace that with watercolor sky. It's quite a nice project. The colors blend beautifully with this technique. If you can't find the image, like here it's a piece of landscape, find something maybe black and white, like a portrait or figure, and you create just the background. There are so many different possibilities. So have fun. Let me see what you created. Bye bye. Okay, let's get started. So this is the project where we combine black and white image with watercolor, where watercolor will be interacting with alcohol. So we'll create different effects. So what you need is the watercolors, and the watercolors will do. You can also work with fluid watercolors or inks. Black and white image. Now with the image, it's so I have this one from just from the magazine, I suppose. Yes, it is. And what I want to do, I want to remove the sky section, and that will be replaced by my watercolor and alcohol interaction, and the rest I want to keep as it is. So find the image where you can replace part of the existing image. That's one option. Or the second option would be having black and white image on just watercolor and alcohol background. So let me just cut the sky out of the image. Okay, I'm trying to be a bit precise here, and that's mixed media or watercolor paper will do. And I'm just gonna figure out if this image will be here, will be ending here. So I just going to cut the remaining piece of paper, maybe used for bookmarking something else. Okay, and then I know that the horizon line be here. I'm just marking that gently. Don't want any lines really. That's a bit too much. Okay, so I do know that from here onwards I'm gonna have my watercolor. So if I cover watercolor, just slightly going over this kind of artificial line, then I know I'm covered fully. See, the process is very simple. It's applying lots of watercolor wet on wet. So we're going to wet the paper first with using I'm going to be using blues, purple, and maybe some reds. And I want contrast, I want contrast for this sky because this is black and white image. And then I will spray into that alcohol. So you can use any alcohol. This is in a spray bottle because it's just been used for different purposes. But any alcohol, what it will do, it will push your watercolor away, of course. And depending on the application, so this is spray bottle. So we'll spray from quite maybe 40 centimeters away. If you have alcohol that you're going to be applying on a brush, you can use splatters. So let me just remind you, splatters, just splatter it on watercolor, and then you will get bigger drops and they will push that alcohol away. So I will use spray maybe from 30 centimeters first, and then we'll see how it reacts. And if there are any areas I want the spray to be closer, I will just apply that closer. So let's wet the paper first. So I'm going over this imaginary, line, because I know that's where the image will cover it, so I don't have to go into those areas. It's quite a big area, so I will try to cover it in one go, but you may find yourself, depending on the size of the paper you working in sections. This is pretty wet now. Just gonna start with some blues, maybe in different areas, because I know this will be pushing the color away later when I add alcohol to it. Darker blue. And because this, this water is in the paper now and lifted paper a little bit, this is not a proper watercolor paper. It's a bit, already lifting paper, so it travels, watercolor travels into different directions here, which is okay. Maybe use a bit of paper, tissue if you need to, so sometimes it's lifting the too much water. Sometimes I think I'm going to put that underneath here because the paint is getting there. Okay, so I'm going to be adding some reds now. This is very dark red, so we create a bit of purple. And just remember, this stage, it will not look like that because the application of alcohol will push the color away. And more blue, more color into color. Don't be afraid of going color into color. So let's do the first. You can apply alcohol a few times. So I'm going to do the first, just spraying it. So it's, you can't see it, but that's it. That's the first one. Okay, so that's already started. It gives like more like a tiny sparkle kind of effect. I'm going to do a few quite close. That's it. So you can see it's pushing it. And I leave that to dry. And then I've seen, depending how I like it, I may go, and I think I'm going to add another layer. Okay, so let me dry that first, and then I come back. Okay, so this layer is dry now. When it was like kind of, halfway through drying, I sprayed a little bit more. So you have a bit different effect because then it's not so wet. What I'm doing now, I know I'll be working on a second layer, but I'm putting this black and white image I prepared before and just thinking, okay, how does it go with the image? I quite like that, but I think I want more focal point, like it was in the original here, so we know where the light comes from. So knowing that now, I'm deciding this will be more like a focal point here. So I'll keep my dark paint in this area. So you may want to wet it again some areas, or you can just start working what's called wet on dry and keep adding just wet paint and then keep adding water when you need it. And I don't have to cover everything now. It's just to add another layer. Some of those areas I really like, so I'm not going to cover them. I like the effect alcohol created here. It's pushing it, the watercolor. Okay, what I'll do now, for a change, I start by opening the bottle, and I will use the straw that normally is inside just to splatter. And look at that. So this one is too wet, and it's also formed a puddle because the paper is losing shape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just move it a bit with the paper, maybe taking just some away, that excess. Let's see if I can repeat the process. That's better now. Okay, so I'm going to leave this to dry like that more. A bit of spray here, close and far away, and that will be my background. So I'm going to let this dry and apply my image. So I'm just going to gently layer it here, see how that will respond, quite like that. And maybe more blue here where the figure is. And maybe some splatters with paint, just a few. And let me dry that now. Okay. So I dried it, I glued the piece of the black and white, and what I've done here additionally, and this is optional, you can use a marker, it doesn't have to be white, or you can use pastel. This is a pastel pencil or just normal colored pencil to bring a bit of contrast and definition. So here I outlined the bigger chunks of this image, which is the rock, and then some bigger kind of clouds, you know, which were created by the watercolor. So here we go. That's the final piece, and have fun and let me see what you created. Bye bye.